Good morning, persecuted public. I'm in the law courts again this week, and I want to tell you exactly what is about to happen to me and exactly why it is happening, and I'm going to show you a series of videos that I've already made that explain it. The courts in Scotland are treasonous. Yeah, 2 of the 4 have closed in my region in the last fortnight. All of that is due to the lack of funds. This is the same week that I made a video on the Rothschilds running their laundering system all around the world, taking in Turkin and Connell, the companies that are run in Lothian Road, the massive fraud empire that is Lothian Road, and all of the Lothian 50 and all of the 3,000 Ponzi shelves that interlock with the Cairn Energy scams and the ownership of the Bank of England in London, where we still have the constitutional monarchy that rules Scotland. Okay, I'm in divorce proceedings, and I'm not going to give up everything to my English wife that she is asking for without a fight. Her brother lives in the Chipping Norton constituency, that is the Whitney constituency that I've told you all about. Everything that they do, they have to cover it up with, in that case, the killing of a musician called Whitney Houston. Yeah, the political crimes and the financial services crimes are much more serious. Sorry, I hope you're not just seeing the top of my suspender belt there. Yeah, I want this to be ultra public, and there's a man coming in to put a letter through my door this morning that I may not have to sign for, like all of the other ones that we get, and that is through the post office that was privatised again by the Royals in another scam run by Vince Cable, who was for a time with Michael Moore the head of the Student Loans Company, as the head of the Department of Trade and Industry in our great country, to steal from every British student. Okay, I'm now going to play you the introductions to some of the videos you need to watch. Yeah, I'm going to ring my solicitor in a few minutes, my wife's solicitor, and ask her how I defend myself, because she has never made any accusations of what I'm guilty of and which behaviours I'm about to be stripped of my wife. My wife left my home, I believe, when she learned that our house was under surveillance, and that when we have sexual congress in our own bedroom, that is live and it is relayed to the public all over the town. And the son and the family of Councillor Tom Weatherston have been monitoring me even before I left for New Zealand. Yeah, the family of the former treasurer of the Scottish Borders Council have been monitoring me even before we left for New Zealand, and my own family tragically have been treasonous to me, and within 24 hours of us leaving on the plane under the monitoring team from my relatives, one of my relatives had an almost fatal stroke the following day. That is what I want to make you all aware of. I do not understand how the gods operate, but the gods are really interested in justice, and I'm going to play you the closing bit of all of the crimes of Lord Christopher Patten. He had his heart attack on May the 17th. Nobody ever gets to hear about whether or not the man is still alive. This is the one that ran the frauds in Hong Kong. This is the one that ran the frauds in Oxford University, the Oxford Russia Fund, the BP director, the Lonro director, the killer of the negotiators in the African pay rounds at Lonro. And Lonro is even denounced by his friends in the Conservative Party. Christopher Patten has had terms in office as a Labour Party member and a Conservative Party member, and he's part of the ultra-fascist Oxford and Cambridge unions at the universities, who plan and run all of the wars in league with the skulls in America and the secret societies through all of those university networks that include Yale, that include Princeton, and we've told you over and over again about the continuation of world wars by these greedy, manipulative bastards. And this one there, that's Prince Charles, is immune from publication of any of his secrets. Okay, so I've put that for my own safety and for the public awareness on Facebook this morning. Okay, local newspapers, tumbling jobs, £1 million for the Prince with immunity from news and law and pay freezes. The local papers are tied to the Prince's Trust and Prince Charles is immune from publication. Let's just click on that and I'll give you some idea of the ground that we cover. Okay, and there's a message appended to that to the Lothian and Borders Police. I would like to have a chat with the local force when I come to the court about Malky Rifkind at G4S with Lord Condon, who are taking away your right to work and talk openly away really soon. Use these search terms and you will see the danger of suppressing free speech. That's the local police force. They are being asset stripped by the former members and leaders of the Metropolitan Police in London. Stephen House was trained by them. He has raised his salary and has his knighthood, and he does it by launching false news stories. And he is now asking to be heavily armed to defend himself against the victimised citizens of Scotland. Okay? To be continued in Jedburgh Sheriff Court on Friday at 10 AM. All welcome, and there is no entrance fee, so please attend as a victim of the 7-year pay freeze and the 20% year-on-year energy hikes in the Ponzi sector. I am defending myself for fear of law enforcement Scotland and its free press in inverted commas. Do not post this on Sheriff Drummond or the Jedburgh Sheriff Court web pages, or they will make it.
Good evening. This is
or they will make it pay-per-view. Yeah, that's like the boxing matches. The law enforcement in Scotland is non-existent. Everything that I can find about the Law Society and its advisors is a link between corrupt governments, corrupt moneylenders and tax evasion systems that mean that even Turk and Connell, who are used by the interlocks between the Rothschild family and the Lothian Road fraud empire, that they do not understand that the shelf code that they have on the front page of their website is one of the Ponzi schemes. Yeah, and I've written to them explaining that, and they don't care. All they care about is taking the £250 an hour to steal from the innocents everything that is rightly theirs, and that they are fighting manfully to protect on behalf of society.
George Lees, Mr. Lees, as Sheriff Kevin Drummond calls me, and I've had a wee look at some of the factors behind how the local press in my region is organised, and I've already told you that the local press in my region is not local press at all. It's a nationalised company called Johnston Press.
So that's a video about Susan Windrum and the interlocks between the Thoms of Galashiels and the Thoms of a place called Darnick, and potentially the involvement of my wife's solicitor, who has several directorial IDs on the local business scams, one of which includes care homes for elderly people. The website for that scam has been in development for almost a decade. There is none. The website for the scams that involve the Windrum family and the Thom family of Galashiels involve a scam about the selling of 35,000 houses across Scotland. When they strip the innocent victims of the divorce proceedings of the right to own the home, then they asset strip the real estate sector. And the people now that have taken over from the company that has been closed because of my revelations, that is the Stormouth Darland real estate empire, it has now been handed over to Cullen and Kilshaw, who are on the board of the global KPMG, along with the head of human resources at Otago Polytechnic, where my wife used to work. He's still on the board of KPMG, which is asset stripping the whole world now. Okay, I know all about their inner secrets, and I'm dead keen to get the burden of this trivial case, which is designed to persecute me, to surveil me in my own home, and I'm going to take them all the way to defamation cases, even if I have to go into the European jurisdiction. I will not take action against my wife, because it will take the money from my children's future. I'm going to take action against the non-limited companies that are the Lothian and Borders Police, that are the Borders Council, yeah, its former leaders, who are now the leaders at the warmongering British Legion, and I've got all of their interlocks to the litigation funds run by the Duke of Westminster, yeah, at the British Legion, in the profiteering from other people's countries' wars sector, which the Rothschilds and the Ponzi shells are all designed to keep strictly secret and to steal from the people. Okay? And if you want to attend Jedburgh Sheriff Court, it will make me safer, because the reporting of law in Scotland is absolutely twisted. Look at my earlier videos on Moira-Anderson and the creation of the Arnot-Manderson Moira-Anderson joke by Stephen House and the powers that be in the speculative society in Edinburgh. Let me show you a little bit about them. So the speculative society in Edinburgh has been around since the 17th century. It is a fraud, and it is a series of mafias that meet in secret, and the last publication on them, which was made in the late 1980s, then the whole lot gets banned. Yeah, all they have done is to crash the global banks using people that get knighthoods like and what I've got, I want you to see that Kevin Drummond is involved in the celebration of the might of the Rothschilds globally. The videos I've made this week are on the Rothschilds taking their theft and their fraud projects and the issuance of money into New Zealand. Yeah, and New Zealand and all of the colonies and all of the world now is controlled by this cabal of criminals, yeah, who sit in judgment on me on Friday coming. You can attend that and you can take notes, but you cannot make a video about it because they are ashamed of what they are doing to our country. Yeah, you can buy a video that they are selling as part of the Crown Office. The Crown is illegitimate for 160 years. I've written to them saying that, and I've written to them saying that I reject the legitimacy of the law courts. I have written to them saying I reject the legitimacy of the marital oath. And I totally understand how it leads. My wife joined me in our marriage when she was the owner of a £4,000 debt pool, had no property of her own. Very quickly she became a partner in all of my bank accounts, and she is a staunch favourite of capitalism, and I'm going to show you how capitalism always returning troops who fight for their country into the shallow grave, and tell you about the Glasgow riots. Look up Kevin Drummond, Jedburgh Sheriff Court, Sheriff Andrew Lothian, and the Glasgow riots and the Napoleonic cull of 88 people who were executed for fighting against a left-wing tyrant, Napoleon, who is not at all a left-wing tyrant. He is the leader of the French wing of the funded by the Rothschilds on both sides battles in the Napoleonic Revolution. It is tragic. Everything that they do steals from and kills the people, and now that they know that I am prepared to out it at every opportunity, they will maybe frisk you at the doors of the Jedburgh Sheriff Court on Friday for cameras, which are a menace to their operation. See the videos I made on my visit to Edinburgh. I now have the receipt from Nicola Sturgeon the day after she locked the doors of the Parliament building so I could not meet her. The Scotsman office has also been moved out of the centre of town. I'm very reluctant to reveal my tactics in the impending divorce culmination proceedings, because every time I am obliged to tell them something about my response to their accusations that at some time in my life, which they're still unprepared to define, I have done something evil to my family or to my wife. It is a total stitch up, and I'm going to make not my boys pay for it, but if my wife does not desist and come back to decency really quickly, then I'm going to litigate against her, but I'm going to litigate against all of those non-limited businesses that are involved in this massive cabal of fraud, from Edinburgh to Dunedin, right through the heart of Hertfordshire, where my wife came from. Yeah, and before I married her, they took me to Chipping Norton so that they could share the joke about the stones and the chips that are the joke about the killing of English troops. That's the Goodbye Mr. Chips film. Yeah, and it is a joke about infidelity in the marital situation. That was told me by a man from Chipping Norton in giddy red trousers in Kelso Square just a fortnight ago. They took me to the Rollright Stones before we got engaged. That is the brother-in-law that has asset stripped the whole of the dental sector. And when I mentioned that to Sheriff Drummond, or no, to Sheriff Halley, who I'm not allowed to talk about, so please don't tell anyone that you have listened to this video, because I have a gagging order on Sheriff Halley, who was launched by Arnot-Manderson, the fraud, to sell Scotland's efforts in the referendum to the Crown, which entirely owns the whole of Scotland for everybody's lifetimes, since Longshanks chucked his son out the window. Yeah, and we've got the romantic ending to the Braveheart movie there, on law enforcement, on Britain, and it's lovely. And you can see his wife, who he had to marry in secret so that she would not be placed in a prima noctis situation that I'm led to believe still exists in the royal palace. Yeah, and the victim of that is the young wife of Princess Sophie, who's married to the young guy who's portrayed in popular culture as a homosexual. So, isn't that lovely? Isn't it lovely? We've been doing that sort of thing for all of human history, and that is our holy lands. Yeah, where we have this rule that we must love our neighbours. Yeah, and I've learned that the first commandment is not that we, must not lop the heads off our enemies, but we must adhere strictly to the one Lord in the skies. That's the first commandment. That's the first thing that they ignore at every opportunity. And that's the reason why the law court officials are called the lords. It's a joke. They think that the lords in the skies are a thing of the past, but I know otherwise. I know that if they persecute me and they continue to do it, that they will pay a really heavy price for that. And they're becoming aware of it. Michael Ancram, the head of the Conservative Party, is very aware of it. He's trying to close the churches down, pretending that they have no funds. Yeah, and Lord Patton is very aware of it. When I made that video on his corrupt life, his entire life is a fraud and a theft project. It takes the theft project into Russia, into China, into Vietnam, into Korea, into all of the Latin American countries, and it takes them back into Ukraine to cover the crimes of the money lenders that the fictitious Jesus talked about. Okay? And isn't it lovely that this actor is Jewish, but because he makes the film and he gets a conscience about taking the piss out of freedom, he is then on rehab like the people in the Blackadder team, if they do not die on the ski slopes, because they were prepared to make lusty advances as monarchs to Flash, who has also died in recent weeks. Yeah, there is a God, and you need to be God-fearing, unlike the law enforcement officials that I'm talking to. This is Ms Thom from Canada's letter. Are you aware of the massive links in wartime to Canada, where Bonner Law was switched as a Prime Minister from Canada? Lord Beaverbrook in 2 wars was the head of the propaganda effort. Yeah. And in the other direction, Lord Tweedsmuir, that's the man who wrote the 39 steps joke, becomes the Governor General in Canada. And the Governor General in New Zealand, when I exposed the war crimes jokes to her, that's Quentin Bryce, resigned within 6 weeks. So when I dob on Lord Patton in April, he has his massive heart attack in May, and nobody in the free press has the courage to tell us whether he's dead or alive. Like McAlpine, the fundraiser, we have never seen footage of his burial or cremation. He died under the heel of fascist Italy. It's alleged. There is no documentary proof of that, but I've got all his director numbers and his family's massive frauds in the infrastructure sector, where everybody who's corrupted gets all the contracts. Okay, and I'm now going to call Ms Thom and see what I have to do next in my persecution, because I'm dead keen not to break any rules, because I am a moralist. I have never done anything evil in my whole lifetime. I was a Catholic altar boy. I attend a number of denominations so that I can understand the human condition, and all of them now are stealing from their parishioners, and they have sainted a man called Ogilvy in recent weeks to cover the financial crimes of the Ogilvies, with links to the Prince's Trust and links to the pharma sector, where I am an expert and a professor in neuroscience. And the understanding of all of these scams is simple when you have a brain like mine, and when you have the courage to reveal it honestly, unlike these myths that they release, written by the inner circle writers for centuries. Those are the major traitors. My wife is a fan of Enid Blyton, and I've explained to you all of the Brownie jokes, all of the Girl Guides jokes, and my auntie, who used to discipline me when she was babysitting, would slap me with the back of the brush. She is a profiteer in the Church of Scotland, the social care of your own parents sector, and she is a profiteer, and she starts training people along those lines in the Girl Guide movement. Yeah, it's very disloyal of me to defame my family, they are still on my wife's contacts lists, and when one of them dies, my wife gets the proceeds through the law system of the deaths of my family members, and she does not talk anymore to my own dad. She's gotten rid of us because we're no longer useful to her in her fundraising exercise, and she is now no longer £4,000 in toxic debt. She is going to be the owner of half of this massive home, which I owned entirely before I met her, but I am not going to give it up lightly. Yeah, and I have no intention of breaking the laws, and I will not then be disemboweled by this system. Okay? And if my wife wants to come back to decency and talk about bringing up our kids without, what's happened is that she has left my home. She is now paying something like £600 a month, which is the basal cost of a care home place now, for decrepit granny who is dismembered by the healthcare sector, that I've made very articulate videos on, involving the leaders of the Wolfson Trust, the leaders of the civil service in Scotland, and the chief pharmacist for Scotland, Bill Scott, yeah, who's sat in judgment on me twice at university interviews. The whole world is stitched up like the Fugitive movie, and I'm quite enjoying the role of the fugitive, because it is inspiring to be honest and brave on behalf of all of your neighbours internationally and locally, and it is really sad that they are prepared to continue with your persecution until they realise that all of the people who persecute you and the world's children are already in the ITU or in a shallow grave in the local cemetery, where the speech was probably given by the boss and the preacher at the Church of Scotland, who's the head of the British Legion and a friend of the man who runs the British Legion, who's got that massive litigation fund. And they have links into the university leaders through Butcher Haig and Alistair Moffat, who are both the rector at St Andrews University, where the Queen's babies get trained to steal and kill from their citizens in that Commonwealth joke. Right then, let's see if I can get some advice from my solicitor so that I do not break the rules again. I don't know, she's unprepared to tell me which rules I've broken already, but let's have a go. She's a Canadian, like Beaverbrook and like Bonner Law, who set up the college where my friends on the river have many friends on the river, and that is the Harris family. That is the Rolf Harris joke, and all of the covers involving Rolf Harris and the paedophilic accusations. Because I worked for the Harris family, who as neighbours of the Rothschilds were obligated to buy a great big chunk of the River Tweed, come up here and keep the ordinary working man under their knee or their heel, and the ordinary working man on the river who's given it up to the quislings from England and in the massive estates, even from France. In this region we have people from France with massive estates. That's the Riddell dynasty. Yeah, it's all over the place. Everybody is into the elite kowtowing gestures except yours truly, but I do not want to break the rules because they are petty, and I'm going to expose all of them and how it asset strips from society. The biggest issue at the moment is the running of £1 trillion debt pools by the big banking institutions out of Lothian Road, which is the Andrew Lothian gangbang rape covered story. Yeah, the Ponzi schemes. Look up any of these search terms on YouTube along with Professor George Lees or George Lees and fraud, and you will find it. And look up also war crimes and genocide, and you will see the gravity of what my wife's solicitor from Canada is defending. Our central bank is now led by a Canadian, and all of the jokes of the Monty Python team are profiled in my 300 videos. Yeah. So, I am writing to confirm that a pre-proof hearing is calling in the matter in Jedburgh Sheriff Court on Friday the 13th March 2015, when both you and I require to be in attendance to indicate to the court whether we have any further documents to lodge with the court and a list of witnesses. I can advise that at this stage I am only intending to call on, I will not give my wife's name. Yeah, because I'm loyal to my wife. I signed an oath that says I will love my wife for all of my life. And I'm not prepared to break that until she breaks it first. Okay? But I look forward to receiving your list of witnesses and a list of documents. She's got my list of documents. She pretends that it's gone missing from Jedburgh Sheriff Court. That is the man, the administrator Martin. I ask him to find the document that reveals everything about these frauds on my website, and I'm going to update that before Friday, so that everything that they talk about, I can give documentary evidence on the war crimes and the genocides and the crimes against the students and the pupils and the school teachers and the public sector employees who've had their salaries and their pay rises, assets stripped by this crooked cabal all across the G8. It's not just Britain and Canada, it's the G8 with a little bit of trickle down for the suppressed leaders of the G20 countries. Only the leaders. Nobody in New Zealand gets anything in New Zealand. It's all been stolen from them by the Commonwealth figureheads and the Governor Generals. And that also, the GG joke, the Governor General joke, is a joke about the owners of the world and its links to the horsey sector. Yeah, it's a massive army of fraudsters, and their role in life is to steal from and kill their own children's prospects. Yeah, what Lord Patten has done has taken away everybody's right to have a mortgage and their own home in Britain. They're £50,000 in debt when they get the honours degree that bastard got for nothing. Sorry, I should say batard, because I'm trying to obey the rules. Okay? And the Oxford Russia Fund and the Future of Russia Foundation is inhabited by the Murdoch family. The B-Sky B contract is owned by the same links. Henry Kissinger, the world's biggest killer, is on the boards of those organisations. And the Prince's Trust is linked. The Prince's Trust's links to the Rothschilds in Scotland and in New Zealand and all across the world are explicitly mentioned in that video I referred you to earlier and has been posted on Facebook this morning. Okay? So, let's see what I'm obliged to do next. And the defence of myself costs me the money. So my wife's writ appears. I say I'm not prepared to talk about this, but I am prepared to share all of my pension with my wife if she's prepared to continue with her marital commitments that she has completely reneged on. Yeah? Instead, they pretend that she left me a year before or 2 years before she actually did, and they've changed the story about her being funded by her brother-in-law, who has assets of over £1 million in real estate, and when he started he had a tiny little flat near Finchley where the frauds are run from, and I helped him with the removals, and all of his documents were accidentally spilled across the pavement. Now when I see an incident like that, I realise it is not an accident. It is a forbearing story about my destiny and my planting on this world to fix this situation. It is evil, and it is evil to the world's children first. So the £600 rental costs for my wife's second home are massive compared to the running costs for this. She's prepared to do that because she thinks that uncontested the funding for that will retrospectively come from the selling of everything that I have put in our mutual shared bank accounts that could be passed on to our children, but instead she's paying for that new toxic debt pool for the second home for the family that is now my youngest son and my wife. And it is economic suicide, and I'm going to bring that forward in the law case if they allow me to but I very much doubt that. Watch the videos and see how free speech is suppressed by the free press and the judiciary and even the police that are in attendance. And that plea to the police to talk to me so that they can protect the local policing jobs from what Sir Stephen House intends to do to them, run by Lord Condon and the Metropolitan Police leaders who train at Fettes, where Tony Blair and Bill Gammell went to school with all of the petty thieves in the public schoolboy sector. And I've got all of the director numbers in all of these massive frauds, and whatever happens in this divorce case, it will give me more time to expose the explicit details and to litigate against the people who have victimised me and my children. That's in my family and without my family group. I know that God has helped me detect the deviant members of my family group who work in the cabal as Freemasons and are enslaved by that as public officials and leaders of society, and people that have gone to Africa to profit from the religious mission down there. Yeah. Yeah, he used to get a bigger consultancy salary for that role than I got in the pharmaceutical industry. And my wife left my bedroom within a fortnight of me cashing the last cheque for my consultancy activities in the pharmaceutical sector, where I'm now exposing the massive NHS frauds that blight our country. And we have the best NHS on the globe, but these teams are desperately trying to stop that and to sever it. Right then, I'm in my running gear because I'm fit and I'm ready for the battle that is going to ensue here. And when I get rid of the bureaucracy and I learn about how the courts work, the whole story is going to be written up articulately to show how shameful law enforcement globally is. And that's why it's mentioned in the Devil's Advocate movie. Right then. Well, I need a pen because I'm very systematic about my obligations to society. Hello, is Patricia around today? It's not really urgent, but I've got a letter from her. I've got my pre-proof hearing this week, but because I can't get a solicitor, I'm not very sure what I need to do. She's asked me to send any new documents that I want to send. I get to see what she's going to present in the court that day? So it's Professor George Lee's. Yeah, it's 0157 322 9084. Jolly good, thank you. Bye. So she's not in. She's in with a client, and that's quite expensive, I'm led to believe, but I don't know what her quote is, because that is another commitment that my wife has taken on. If I lose this case, and it's in the hands of one man in the corrupted judiciary in Scotland, there is no access to a team of level-headed locals who can see the damage that these policies are wreaking on society. But what you've got is the man in the wig that you have to call my lad. You don't have to do that to him, because they know that Christianity is a fraud for all that time, which is why they call themselves the Lords. And that is a breach of the first commandment. I learned that in the Church of Scotland. The Pew Bible, the Good News Bible, it is really good news that when you look closely at the biblical text, you can see that it is entirely a fraud. And all of the videos I've made with John Patterson, it stuns him every time when we talk about it. But none of them are prepared to listen to that. And the videos that they've made about Greg Hallett, who revealed the illegitimacy of the monarchy, reveal how the manipulation of the YouTube statistics is designed to make investigative journalists feel a little bit down. Everything in the newspapers is a cover-up for the crimes that I'm reporting, and the other teams are somewhere in the middle. If you look at the videos that Bing Crosby made about war bonds, and you look at the jokes of the Hogan's Heroes story that was written and directed by Bing Crosby, it's about profiteering in war. Yet Bing Crosby is just a joker, like the red-nosed day criminals that are on the street corners this very week. Yet the Vicar of Dibley, all of them are massive fraudsters, and the money for that is like the money for the Leveson inquiry into justice in Britain. They remunerate themselves for abuses that they write about in their papers that they own, and that is run by Lord Leveson, who's a relative of the Merton jokers. And the Merton joke is the Metatron joke about the religious interplay and the roles of the Jewish angels. Watch any of the videos I've made in recent months. There are 300 of them now. Yeah? And the Patricia Thom issues are on my website under Selling Scotland and Your Innocent Husband Down the Swanee. Yeah, it's Prof George Lee's /revelations, and all of it is coming into the public eye, and I've invited the listeners to this video to attend the law courts. If they start locking the public out of the law courts because the public are abused by the judiciary and the solicitor sector and the real estate sector that profit beyond that, then they are going to quake. They are not upstanding people, they are physical cowards, but they have access to NATO's armies to protect them, and NATO's armies end up in the shallow grave and the war memorial celebrations run by the Duke of Westminster, Britain's richest man. I'll start the camera again when the phone rings. And remember that all of this is surveilled at multiple places across the Borders community, and I'm led to believe by the people at Squawk Box that the people in the Sky News networks also get footage of my activities in my own home, which I entirely possess at the moment, but they intend to take it from me.